Hello everybody, welcome to this new Touchdesigner tutorial, and in this one I'm going to show you a trick on how to create this 3D point cloud infinite effect of passing by landscape. It's mainly based on my last tutorial technique on how to convert stable diffusion output into a kind of 3D point cloud. But in this one, yeah, it's this trick on how to make the stable diffusion output like to be infinite and to have it play forever. So for this one, I'm only using one output and it's looping, but maybe in a different tutorial, I will show you how to handle it with like multiple outputs. And so for this tutorial, you will need like a commercial license. The texture size is 1248 by 720. So the non-commercial license 1280 by 1280 won't work, unfortunately, and as well you need stable diffusion, and if you don't have it installed, I recommend you to use Stability Matrix as a package installer. It's kind of really easy to install, so yeah, we can jump into it. So here I am in Stable Diffusion. I'm using Dreamshaper 8, and yeah, I put my my prompt here and my negative prompt there, and then I'm using the DPM ++2M and sampling step 20, and I'm not using high-res fix, and then 1280 by 720, and I'm going to press generate and wait for the image to pop out. So now that we have our picture, I'm going to start a new Touchdesigner session. And inside it, I'm going to drag and drop the picture we just generated. So here we are. And what I want to do is actually the picture right now is 1280 by 720. And what I want is to generate a picture like wider, 2048 by 720. So for that, I'm going to add a constant top and alpha 0, and in resolution 2048 by 720. And what I want to do actually is to use the left part of the image to be on the right part and the right part on the left part, divided in the middle. So the left part will fit the right part if we pass from one to another. So I hope it's clear. Let's do that. So the easiest way maybe is to use a composite top. And I'm going to compose and use over. And I'm going to transform it to, so let's not use fill, but input resolution, native resolution. And I'm going to offset it by 0.5 on the left. And I'm going to do the same, but with the right part. So minus 0.5. And so now we can compose both of it. And use add. And as you can see, like this side is going to be this. If we go from there to there will be a continuation. Now we have to fill up this part. And in order to fill up this part, we are going to use again Stable Diffusion. And Stable Diffusion, in order like to do in painting, need like the easiest way is to create a mask and to say to Stable Diffusion to use the center part as the mask. So first we are going to save this image as Gen 1, for instance, PNG Gen 1. And then I'm going to create a mask. So a mask is a rectangle basically. So I can use a rectangle of 0.5 and 0.5, and you can see like it overlaps a bit the image, which is kind of good because we need the mask to kind of not just stop there, otherwise it can create weird situation in Stable Diffusion. So to have it overlap a bit, it's good. So I'm going to save it as mask. And then I'm going to go back to Stable Diffusion. So in Stable Diffusion, you can press Send Image and Generation Parameter to Image tab. we want to keep the same prompt as we had before, so it's good like to do that, it's easier. And then we go to InPaint Upload, and into InPaint Upload we are going to drag and drop the picture we just generated, Gen 1, and as well as the mask. So now we have this. We have to be sure, like here, we don't want 1280 by 720, but 248 by 720. Mask blur, we can try to keep it like in 4. Mask mode in paint model, masked, and mask content field, and in paint area will be only masked part. And yeah, let's try. Hit generate. So right now I'm not really satisfied of the outcome, so I'm going to press generate again. And yeah, do that until you found like an outcome that you like. I feel like right now it's not really nicely made. This one is a bit better, but here I feel it's a bit weird, so I can increase the mask blur to maybe 8, so it will create a smoother transition. So I think I like this one. It's like kind of nice for me, so I'm going to keep it. So now that I like this one, what I want is to generate the depth map of it. So I'm going to click this to open the folder where it's generated, and then going to depths in order like to have it processed into the depths analysis. I'm going to drag it, drop it, and use a depth anything v2 base, and just hit generate. So now we have both color map here and depth map here, and we can go and pick them, both them, and put them in the same folder. So now let's open a new Touchdesigner session, and we are going to import the two pictures we just generated. So for that, let's add a movie file in. And here in file, let's select the picture we selected, the color one. And let's do the same then for the depth one. So let's put the depth on top. So now we have both of our pictures, and what we want is to create a point cloud out of them. And so for that, we are going to add a UV grid. And to do so, let's add a GLSL top. And inside the GLSL, let's get rid of this line, or let's keep this line actually, and keep only vuv.st for frag color. And so it's going to be a vec2. And get rid of this one, and output we want to output color, then 0 for the blue, and 1, and it's vec4. So what's happening? So let's go in command and say it's a 2-bit float RGBA. So basically we are saying VUV, so it's going to create a grid, and 0 is for the blue parameters, so the depth, and it's going to be 0, and 1 is the alpha. And if we see as point, we can see we have a perfect grid. Now we want this grid to be the same resolution than our picture. So what we can do is to add an info chop, and drag and drop this one, and we are going to use this to set up our GLSL parameters. So, oops, sorry, let's activate the viewer here and drag and drop this and this to have the grid set up. But now the grid is not centered, neither like is in the good ratio. So to change that, let's add a point transform after our GLSL. And what we want actually is to have the scale to be this divided by 1000, and same for the 8 divided by 1000. And so now we should have a grid which fits the ratio of our pictures, but what we want is to have it centered. So let's translate it by -0.5 and -0.5, and we want to offset it before we do the scaling. So here let's translate, rotate, and then scale. So now we have grid, which looks like what we want, and we will need to instance it. So let's add a null here and call it null pos. And let's add add points, and then convert it. And we want to convert it to particles per point and render as point sprite. And let's chain it with a geo. And in the geo, activate the instancing and drag and drop null pos into the translate OP and RGB onto the X, Y, and Z parameters. And then after the movie filing, let's add a null as well, and it will be our color map. So call it null color. And let's drag it into instance2, into color OP and RGB, and let's add the alpha parameters as well. And so now we cannot see much, so we need a camera and then a render top. And we still can't see much, so let's zoom in a bit with the camera already to 1.5, something like that, like to have everything. We will adjust this later, and let's add a point sprite material, drag and drop it on the material part of the geo, and here we are. Let's lower down the alpha and command page blading transparency. And so right now, let's add an RGB key after our render top. We have like something which kind of works, but it's still a flat image. So what we want is use the depth parameter, depth image, to control the depth of the pixels. So let's add a reorder here and connect it to the movie filing. And output blue will be input 2. So right now we have something which works way better. As you can see here in the geo, we have the expected effect. So let's maybe zoom out a bit here and down. So now it's already working well, but we can increase the sensation of depth into the point sprite parameters. We can go to the attenuate point scale and go to a value like 1. So we fully played on this, and near point scale I want it to be only 2, and attenuate point scale distance, let's play with it and until we reach like the point we like. So maybe like something like 1.7 is kind of good. And also I want like the background to not show up as this cloud, as these clouds are like not really 3D mapped into the depth map. So let's get rid of it. And to do so, I'm going to add a threshold, a new link after the movie filing of the depth. And threshold, let's go like to something we like. So maybe something like that. And let's have the alpha parameter here. So let's select 8-bit fixed RGBA. And now we have the alpha, and we can multiply our movie filing with this one. And yeah, we have something which I think feels a bit more natural right now. So it's kind of good. And now the trick part is we want to have the landscape passing by the camera. So let's add a point transform after our reorder. And as you can see, if we use the translate, we have it moving forward or backwards, and it's nice because we can see like the 3D effect. But once we reach the limit, it's just stop. So what we want is to add a limit. So once we reach one size, it's kind of looping. So for that, there is a limit top. And in the limit top, so we add one, and we want it to be looped and looped. And we only want actually to have the x coordinates to show off, to be affected by the limit. So let's mask the G and the B. And right now you can see like they are kind of overlapping. And it's because we put the limit to -1 and 1, but actually our our grid is not exactly going from -1 to 1, but it's minus scale divided by 2. So let's copy these parameters and into the limit. In maximum value, let's add this one, divided by 2. And same for minus, and we divide it by 2 as well. And so right now, it's perfectly fitting and being like right next to each other. And if we move the point transform, we can see like it's working, but because the depth map was not generated the same way we generate the color, it's not perfectly fitting. Like a simple way to see it is like if I add a transform here, and in tile I say repeat and I move it, we can see here like the depth map are not exactly the same. So depending on how it's generated, we can correct it by hand. First methodology would be like to add a transform here, a point transform, and we can play on the orientation of the depth map. So let's rotate it like a bit there, and you can see we can kind of correct the fitting, but it's not ideal, so we can try like several ways. So there is a way like you can correct it a bit, but what we can do as well is to have it overlap a bit, just a bit, like so we won't see much this gap here, or at least a bit less. And so for that we can correct this in the limit. Like in the minimum value we can actually add plus 0.02, and now it's overlapping maybe too much, so let's say 0.05, and yeah, now I think it's a bit better. The thing is like now the color are adding as well, which is not really great, but we can maybe correct this into this color page. So what we could do is to have like a small transparency, like really small on the left and right side. So when both of them overlaps, it's not as strong as now. And so we could do that with a ramp, but I found the ramp top like to be not really precise sometimes. So what we can do as well is insert a rectangle. And in output, in operation, let's say multiply. And so we want the rectangle to be 1 by 1 here. And we want to softness the rectangle, so it will soften the edge. And because here we choose 1, like it won't, it's like we can go back to 0.5 before it affects anything. So it's good. And on the X, if I soften a bit the edge, you can see like it's kind of working. So I can soften a bit, like something like 0.25, and then I can increase a bit the size here, so we can reach, and yeah, we can have something like where in like a setup in which like we find a good combination to have something where we don't see the difference. And now I think it's not that bad. If we move, we won't notice too much. We won't the difference of the depth map. So I think it's pretty working well now. Let's add a speed to this translate, so it goes all along. So we could use apps time.seconds, but I prefer to have controlled parameters. So let's add a constant chop, sorry, and in the constant, let's call it speed. Link it to a speed, and then to a null, and this null we can call it null speed. And we are going to use this one to control the translate parameter here. Now if I move a bit this one, I have the landscape moving as we go. So it's working already pretty well. Of course you can play a bit more with these parameters if you want to find like really the sweet spot for the kind of the stitching. But I think right now it's kind of good. So yeah, I think it's already working well. What we could do is to add a bit of effect around it, so the city looks a bit more lively. So I want to have some noise, particle noise, like floating around. So I'm going to copy paste this geo and use another map for it. So let's after this point transform, let's add noise, and let's link it to both, and then we are going to copy this and put it after, and use this null post one to drive the instancing of this new geo. So right now it's a nice effect, but it's not really what I had in mind. And let's go to these noise parameters and get rid of the monochrome. And so now there is a noise, but it's way too much. Let's get rid of the offset and maybe like go to a way smaller amplitude. And right now it's kind of nice. We can animate it in translate page. Let's say apps time.seconds. Multiply by 0.05, so we have something moving, but maybe like the particles are too big and too many, so let's copy this point sprite, copy paste, and use it to drop this second one and have an alpha which is a bit smaller. So it starts to be kind of cool, but still I feel there is way too much particles of this noise. So we can limit this, and to do so, I can either play it on the color of it. Either I can play it about how much noise I want to control, how much noise will be controlling the initial position of the particles. So after this, I'm going to middle mouse click and add another noise. And this one, I just want like to connect it to have the resolution. So in output RGB, I'm going to choose noise, and alpha will be noise as well. And I want to keep it in monochrome, offset to 0. And what I want actually is where the white is, I want to have this affected by this noise, and where it's transparent, I don't want it. But right now the signal is not 0 or 1, and I want it to be 0, 1. So let's add mat top, and in integer, let's say round. So I only want the white part, and right now you can see like there is black part, and if I display pixel value, you can see the black part are -1. So I want to limit this to 0, 1. So after the mat, I'm going to add a limit top, and say clamp, and to 0, and multiply this limit with this noise. And so now we will only have the particles where we have the noise. So if I increase maybe the amplitude and the offset, I can decide how much particles I want to show off. I can as well do composite with an over to have it above the buildings. So let's add an over, and in this over we are going to choose this point transform there. And so now it's a bit more brighter where the buildings are. So I think it's starting to look cool. And so now what we could do is to add a bit of bloom effect, so it can look even cooler and a bit more bright sometimes, and doesn't act much. So in pre-black level, let's lower it down, so we have something like that. And what we can do as well is to kind of play with color of both. So let's copy paste this color one, and in this instance too, let's use color 1 instead. and we can add a level before each one, and then play on how different the particles are to the landscape. So let's add a bit of brightness maybe to the particles, and here as well, and maybe a bit more gamma here and a bit less gamma here. And yeah, so we have something which looks a bit nicer. Let's maybe increase the contrast there and there. And yeah, that's kind of pretty much it. I think it's over for this one. It's not much difference compared to the previous tutorial I did on the point cloud, but I think this method can be nice, like to have a nice moving scene. I will probably do another tutorial on how to combine different outputs and to have like, because right now it's just going from one part to another, and it can look a bit boring after a while, but we can of course like combine different one in a bit more complex system. So if you have any question, feel free to ask. And for the people who are subscribed to my Patreon, you can get the files to generate the mask part, and as well as this file into my Patreon. Hope you enjoyed it, and I see you next time for another tutorial.